Good morning, and welcome to the New York City Fire Pension Fund Investment Meeting. We are at One Battery Plaza in the ninth floor conference room. This is a hybrid meeting with some attendees attending via Zoom. Today is December 13th, 2024. It is 10:06 a.m. We will begin with a roll call of trustees.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. Representing Mayor Eric Adams.
Kevin Lear for Mayor Adams.
Press Kevin. Representing Controller Brad Lander.
John Dawson, designee for Controller Brad.
Good morning, John. Well, representing Commissioner Preston Niblock, Department of Finance.
Nadia Fazulina for Commissioner Niblock.
Nadia. For the UFA, Mr. Andrew Ensborough.
Eustace with Andy Anzo's proxy.
Good morning, Bobby, and Mr. Robert Eustace.
Present.
Mr. Christopher Viola.
Yep.
Mr. Dennis Tavetta.
Chris Viola with Dennis's proxy.
Very good. Mr. John Young.
Chris Viola with John's proxy.
Very good. For the UFOA, Mr. Joseph Camastro.
Here.
Mr. Liam Guilfoyle.
Here.
And Mr. Sean Michael.
Here.
Good morning, gentlemen. And for Fire Commissioner Robert Tucker, Deputy Commissioner Lizette Christoph.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. So I know we just started, but our first item is actually going to be an attorney-client session. So we are going to stop the recording and make sure the right people are out of the various rooms. Excellent, thank you. Now that we have finished the attorney-client session, we are going to resume with the public agenda. I turn it over to the Comptroller's office.
Thank you, Commissioner. Steve, I understand you have some consolidated remarks today. And I want to note that all the materials that Steve talks about are in are in convene and are provided to the boards. So you can leaf through those at your leisure. But since we have a pretty lengthy agenda, I understand you wanted to just give a synopsis.
Steve, we can't hear you.
That might be better.
This is good material.
Hear me now?
We can.
Okay, great. So we're going to boil it down from a 62 page slide deck to just one page. Okay, can you pull that up, please? The performance slides. So before we get into this, I just want to give a couple of brief updates in terms of where we are in the world. The U.S. economy is quite resilient. We have 4.2% GDP growth for the third quarter. We have 2.7% inflation, up a little bit from October and November. We have we have the Fed continue to reduce rates. They're expected to cut another 25 basis points next Wednesday when they meet on the 18th. The economy is actually doing quite well. Equity prices have done really well and rallied, particularly following the Donald Trump's election, with expectations of perhaps a more commercially friendly administration and a return of animal spirits. So as a general matter, the portfolio is performing quite well. As you can see, listed here, this is the performance through the end of September. It's actually improved from here. But if you look in the 1 year slot, U.S. equity performance, this is your performance on an accounting basis, fully 32% year to year. So September 30 to September 30, those are really wonderful numbers. And for the total plan across public and private assets, up 17.5%. I don't believe these numbers will hold, and I certainly don't believe they can be accounted or repeated on a consistent basis over time. But again, where we are right now, the performance is quite strong in the portfolio, and that carries through September September 30, but also through December 10, which is our last snapshot from Tuesday. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
At the risk of getting killed by some of the people in this room. The market is obviously on fire. Curious what gives you concerns, and how long do you think, for lack of better terminology, the Trump effect will hold up?
I think there's a lot of unknowns around the actual what's going to be implemented in terms of policy. Obviously, tariffs, mass deportations would be highly inflationary. The inflationary impact of tariffs really depends on the reaction we have from our trading partners. I think also that the level of geopolitical risk is certainly elevated to a point where, people are talking about running parallels to, the late 1930s. There's just a lot going on in the world. I think it's a dangerous time. Valuations in the United States are very high. Perhaps for a reason, I do think there are competitive advantages that the US has over other parts of the world, other economies, and particularly Europe at this point. And everyone, if you look at the valuations of a 22.5% PE for the S&P 500 relative to comparable indices in Europe, it's almost 10 points above that, above where they are in Europe. So on a relative value basis, you could look at the US and say, well, it looks valuations are high. There's probably only one way they're going to go over time, being lower. We also have, I think, the consensus estimate for equity returns annually over the next 10 years across all 5 of the general consultants is around 6.7% for equities. And you can see here, a 32.8% return year over year is really out of line with that. And if those are accurate, you have a number of really smart people, Goldman Sachs and Bank of America, are forecasting 2 to 3% equity returns on average over the next 10 years. I don't necessarily share those views. I think they'll be higher than that. But valuations are high.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd say the other thing I'd mention, Liam, is the question around deficit spending. We run huge deficits. We're at 100% of GDP right now, our debt to GDP ratio. The last time it was here, it was during World War II, and it's expected to go even higher. So you worry about, crowding out, you worry about an increased term premium in the marketplace. The Fed's been easing rates, and yet there's been volatility and a backup on the long end, and I think that's evident of that. From an investment standpoint, I do think that slightly higher for longer is good for your fixed income investments because it again provides some carry and some income. Maybe some more challenges for equity and private equity prices down the road.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Steve.
Since there's no other questions or comments, I would make a motion to exit public session and enter into executive session.
Second, Liam Guilfoyle.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are entering into executive session. Please stop the recording. Turn to the. Yes.
Okay, we are now in public session. I would like to make a motion to exit the public session of the pension fund, the fire pension fund, and enter into the firefighters variable supplements fund.
Motion, Bob Eustace.
Okay,
Any-
second, I'll second that. Okay.
Okay. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are now in the firefighter variable supplement fund meeting. We will start with a roll call.
For Mayor Eric Adams,
Kevin Lee for Mayor Items.
for Commander,
John Dorsey, designee for Control of Bradland.
and for Department of Finance Commissioner Preston Niblack.
Nadia Fazulina,
And for the UFA, Mr. Robert Eustace.
Present.
We have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. The only item on the agenda is that the board is requested to note the receipt of the quarterly reports.
So note that, and I would make a motion to exit the public session of the firefighters variable supplement fund and enter the public session of the fire
Fire
pension fund.
Officers.
Oh, sorry, and enter the fire officers variable supplement fund.
Second.
Yeah, I made it. He's gonna second it.
Second.
Now we're in the fire officers variable supplements fund.
Okay, we are now in the fire officers variable supplements fund meeting. We will start with a roll call.
And what, Rick Adams
Kevin Lee for Mayor Items.
for Controller Brad Lander,
John Dorsey, designee for Control of Bradland.
and for Department of Finance Commissioner Preston Niblack.
Nadia Fazulina for Commissioner Niebla,
Very good. And for the UFOA, Mr. Joseph Camastro.
Here.
And Mr. Liam Guilfoyle.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. The only item on the agenda is that the board is requested to note the receipt of the quarterly reports.
We'll so note that the receipt, and I'll make a motion to exit the fire officers variable supplements fund and enter into the fire pension fund.
Second, Liam Guilfoyle.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are now back into the public session of the Fire Pension Fund meeting. During the executive session, the board discussed various investment matters. We have no further items on the agenda, so I would welcome a motion
So
to
hap-
adjourn.
Happy holidays to all, and I would like to say, I make a motion to.
Second, Liam Guilfoyle.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Enjoy your
all.
holidays, folks.